In this lesson, we're going to look at how to get rid of lots of fractions or decimals within a particular equation. So if you would please take a minute, pause the video, write down your topic and your essential question, and when you're ready to begin, you can restart the video. Okay, so when we see when we see equations that have a bunch of fractions in them or decimals, sometimes it gets a little bit stressful. We don't like fractions. Now, that doesn't mean you can't solve the equation with the fractions in them, but there are some things we can do to help make that a little bit stressful. So, to clear out a fraction, to get rid of fractions within an equation, what we want to do is we want to look at the denominators of the fractions that we had. Look at the denominators, and we want to multiply the whole equation by a common denominator or a common multiple. And by doing that, we're not trying to change the fractions to more fractions or fractions with like denominators, but if we pick a common denominator, it's going to clear out or get rid of those fractions. So let's look at the first example. I'm going to look at all of my denominators. I have 3, a 2, and a 6. 2x doesn't matter. It's not a fraction. So my denominators have 3, 2, and 6. A common multiple or a common denominator here would be 6. And so I want you to see what happens here. If I do 2/3 times 6, well, that gives me 12/3, which is 4. So now I no longer have a fraction, 4x. Okay, if I do 6 times 1/2, well, hopefully we know very quickly that half of 6 is 3. So now I have plus 3x equals, every term gets multiplied, even if it doesn't have a fraction. 5, 6 times 6, notice that's just going to cancel out. So we get 5, and then I also have to do 6 times 2x, which is 12x. Now that equation looks a lot friendlier. Okay, now you could solve that equation from there. If you want to go ahead and solve it, you can, but you do not have to. I just want us focusing on how to get rid of the fractions or decimals. Okay, so looking at the next one. Look at all of your denominators, 8, 4, and 2. A common multiple or a common denominator would be 8. And so now I'm going to multiply every term by 8. So that gives me 7x. If I do 3/4 times 8, I just want to remind you we can go straight across, or you can do a little simplifying. So that makes plus 6. Half of 8 is 4. And if I do 3/2 times 8, that makes 12. And so again, I have a nice, friendly equation. Okay, the next one. This one is a little bit trickier. I want to point out that it's different in that we have parentheses. So there's 2 options here. We could distribute our fractions first and then look at clearing out the fractions. Or we can clear out the fractions the way it is. But if we do that, it looks a little bit different. These parentheses are protecting our terms or expressions in parentheses. So if I want to clear out the fraction without distributing first, my common denominator or multiple would be 8. And what I want you to see is that only the fractions get touched because everything else is protected by the parentheses. So that would 8 times 1/8 is just 1. So that's going to be nice and easy right there. 8 times 1/4 is 2. Now I could do the distributive property. Now, if that's confusing to you, if you think you would be safer going ahead and distributing the fractions first and then clearing them out, then you can absolutely do that. Okay. To clear out decimals, we want to multiply by, and I'm going to say the lowest place value, because hundredths with the th on the end is lower than tenths. Okay, so let's look at the example. And so in this first example, this is a whole number. This is tenths place, tenths place, tenths place. So that's super easy. So all I have to do is multiply by 10. Multiplying by 10 is just going to move the decimal once to the right. So that's easy. And we have to multiply everything by 10. So that gives me 20y plus 114 plus 26. Whoops, I forgot. There's no equal sign. That's okay. Minus 2y. That's okay. No big deal that there's no equal sign. I think that probably meant that to be an equal sign. But that's okay because we're not practicing solving. We're just practicing clearing out the fractions. Okay. On the next one, I've got the tenths place. I've got the hundredths place, the hundredths place, and the hundredths place. So this time, my lowest place value, if I want all my decimals to go away, I have to multiply by 100. If I multiply by 100, that means the decimal is going to move 2 times to the right in each of our terms. So right here, 2 times to the right, 1, 2, would be 540x. So, you know, we've made some big numbers now, not so great, but that's okay. Plus 1,456 minus 1,023x equals 1,289. Okay? We will pick up with this in class. Please write down any questions you might have and make sure your notes are complete.